Have you ever wondered how a conflict as large-scale as World War II came to be? It sprung from the ashes of the First World War, the economic hardships that followed, and the rise of totalitarian regimes. The Treaty of Versailles, signed at the end of World War I, placed severe reparations on Germany, sowing seeds of resentment and economic turmoil. Then came the rise of fascism. In Germany, Adolf Hitler's ascent to power brought militaristic and expansionist policies. Over in Italy, Benito Mussolini was singing a similar tune. Meanwhile, Japan was nurturing imperial ambitions in Asia, leading to conflicts with China and eventual aggression in the Pacific. Each of these elements played a crucial role, intertwining and escalating until they reached a boiling point. And so, the stage was set for a global conflict of unprecedented proportions. The world watched with growing concern as tensions escalated. In the heart of Europe, Hitler, the German Führer, was making bold moves. Violating the terms of the Treaty of Versailles, he annexed Austria, while his eyes were set on the Sudetenland, a region in Czechoslovakia with a significant German-speaking population. This rampant aggression raised alarm, but the world's response was one of appeasement. The Munich Agreement of 1938, a pact between Germany, Italy, Britain, and France, allowed Hitler to annex the Sudetenland in hopes of averting a larger conflict. However, any illusions of peace were shattered when Hitler invaded the rest of Czechoslovakia in 1939. Meanwhile, in a stunning twist, Hitler signed a non-aggression pact with none other than the Soviet Union. This pact cleared the path for Hitler to invade Poland without fear of Soviet intervention. The fuse had been lit and the world awaited the inevitable explosion. On September 1, 1939, the world was thrust into a state of war. Germany's aggression reached a fever pitch with the invasion of Poland. This marked the beginning of World War II, as Britain and France declared war in response to this unprovoked attack. The German military, utilizing a strategy known as blitzkrieg, or lightning war, launched swift and coordinated attacks. This approach was designed to achieve rapid victories, and it did just that. It overwhelmed Poland, leading to its rapid conquest. But following Poland's fall, an eerie silence fell across Europe. This period of relative inactivity, which lasted from September 1939 to April 1940, came to be known as the Phony War. Despite the lack of major land operations, preparations for a larger conflict were underway. The world was now at war, and there was no turning back. As the conflict spread, alliances were formed, and battle lines were drawn. On one side, Germany, Italy, and Japan had aligned their ambitions, forming what would be known as the Axis powers. Their shared goal was nothing less than world domination, with plans to carve up Europe, Africa, and Asia amongst themselves. On the other side, the Allied powers began to coalesce. Britain and France were the first to join forces, their hand forced by Germany's aggression. The Soviet Union, initially in a non-aggression pact with Germany, would later join the Allies after Hitler's betrayal. And although the United States and China were initially determined to remain neutral, the tide of war would eventually draw them in, solidifying the ranks of the Allies. These alliances altered the landscape of the war, transforming a series of regional conflicts into a truly global war. The stage was set for a global showdown. The war was fought on multiple fronts, each with its unique challenges and pivotal moments. In the European theater, Germany's blitzkrieg tactics brought swift victory in the Battle of France. Paris fell within a month, and France was divided into German-occupied and Vichy zones. But the Battle of Britain showed that Hitler's war machine wasn't invincible. The Royal Air Force's tenacious defense, despite being outnumbered, marked Britain as a beacon of resistance against Nazi tyranny. The Eastern Front became the largest and bloodiest theater of war. The clash between Nazi Germany and the Soviet Union was a grim struggle of attrition. Cities like Stalingrad witnessed some of the harshest combat, with both sides suffering heavy casualties. The freezing Russian winters proved as formidable as the Soviet forces, leading to significant German losses. Meanwhile, halfway around the world, the Pacific Theater was a vast battleground stretching across millions of square miles. Japan's surprise attack on Pearl Harbor in 1941 marked the entry of the United States into the war. The battles of Midway, Guadalcanal, and Iwo Jima saw fierce fighting on land, at sea, and in the air. The Pacific War was characterized by intense naval battles, amphibious assaults, and brutal jungle warfare. These theaters of war, though geographically separate, were interconnected in their outcomes. Success or failure on one front could impact the situation on another. And as the war progressed, the lines between these theaters blurred, with nations pooling their resources and coordinating their efforts to resist the Axis powers. The world was in the grip of a war the likes of which it had never seen before. Every day brought new challenges, new battles, and new sacrifices. From the sands of North Africa to the frozen steppes of Russia, from the skies over Britain to the islands of the Pacific, millions of men and women were fighting for their countries, their freedom, and their very lives. In the midst of the war, humanity witnessed some of its darkest hours. The Holocaust, orchestrated by Hitler's Nazi regime, marked a systematic, state-sponsored genocide, where 6 million Jews were brutally murdered. This wasn't merely an act of violence, but a meticulously planned and executed extermination that exploited every apparatus of the state. But the Holocaust was not the only instance of genocide during World War II. In Eastern Europe, the Nazis also targeted Romani people and the disabled. In the Far East, the Japanese military committed appalling atrocities, including the infamous Nanking Massacre. In Rwanda, ethnic tensions escalated into a bloodbath. These genocides, often overshadowed by the vast scale of the war, were a stark testament to the depths of inhumanity. They were driven by ideologies that devalued human life and dignity, reducing individuals to mere cogs in a machine of hatred and discrimination. These horrific acts remind us of the depths to which humanity can sink in times of war. In every war, there are moments that change the course of history. World War II was no exception. Two key events stand out as turning points that altered the war's trajectory. The Battle of Stalingrad, a brutal confrontation that lasted from August 1942 to February 1943, was the first major defeat for Nazi Germany on the Eastern Front. The Soviet Union's victory didn't just halt German advances, it was a morale boost for the Allies, and a blow to the invincibility myth surrounding the Third Reich. Fast forward to June 6, 1944, a date known as D-Day. The successful Allied invasion of Normandy marked the beginning of the end for the Axis powers in Western Europe. It paved the way for the liberation of territories under Nazi occupation and set the stage for the final phase of the war. These pivotal moments marked the beginning of the end for the Axis powers. The tide of war was turning and the end was in sight. As the Allies pressed forward, Germany found itself caught in a pincer grip. From the east, the indomitable Soviet forces advanced, while from the west, an Allied coalition pushed relentlessly. On May 8, 1945, Germany officially surrendered, marking the end of the war in Europe, celebrated as Victory in Europe or VE Day. However, the war was far from over in the Pacific. The battles raged on with intensity, the Allied forces inching closer to Japan with each hard-fought victory. Then, in August 1945, a new and horrifying chapter in warfare was opened. The United States dropped atomic bombs on the cities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. The devastation was unimaginable. Japan, faced with this new reality, surrendered on September 2, 1945. This day would be remembered as Victory over Japan, or VJ Day. On September 2, 1945, World War II was finally over. The war may have ended, but its effects would be felt for generations. The human cost was staggering, with an estimated 60 million lives lost worldwide, making it the deadliest conflict in human history. Cities lay in ruins, economies were shattered, and countless lives were irrevocably changed. In response to the horrors of the war, nations came together to form the United Nations, an international body aimed at preventing such a catastrophe from happening again. This marked a new era of diplomacy and international cooperation. However, the end of World War II also marked the beginning of a new conflict, the Cold War. With the rise of the United States and the Soviet Union as superpowers, the world would once again be drawn into a state of tension and rivalry, albeit a largely non-military one. World War II was a global conflict of unprecedented scale, and its legacy continues to shape our world today.